Okay, Mayor Brown, we're live.
Okay, I would like to call the meeting of the Texarkana, Arkansas Board of Directors for Monday, November the 2nd to order. Heather, could you call the roll, please?
Director Harris,
Here.
Director Hollebush,
Here.
Director Brewer is absent. Director Minor,
Here.
Director Peavy,
Here.
Assistant Mayor Teeters. I know she was here.
Sorry, here.
Got you, thank you, and Mayor Brown.
Here. At this time, on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes of the regular scheduled meeting on October the 19th. Item number 2 is to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to sell a parcel of land currently owned by the city of Texarkana, Arkansas, described as Lot 2 and Block 3, Meadow Lane Addition, to Carl Caldwell, Tyler Richards in the Public Works Department. And this is on the consent agenda, and it has met with city's recommendation of approval. What is the board's decision on the consent agenda?
Teeters, make a motion that we approve the consent agenda items.
Director Peavy, second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda. Any other discussion? If not, all those approved say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the consent agenda passes. Moving on to our regular agenda, item number 3 is to adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year ending 2021 budget. I believe Finance Director Tyronda Henderson is with us.
Heather, could you do the presentation for me?
Yes, ma'am, I'm pulling it up right now.
Thank you. Okay,
There you go.
thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Brown, Board of Directors, and City Manager, Dr. Haskin. This evening, I will present the fiscal year end 2021 budget. The theme for this year's budget is Building Back Better. Heather, next slide. The city received the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the fiscal year end 2020 budget. The 2021 budget will also be submitted for this award as well. Next slide, please. The citywide summary shows revenues and expenditures at 32.5 million with 408,000 appropriated for expenditures. The by-state and TW budgets have yet to be approved. Next slide, please. Sales tax is the city's largest source of revenue at 34%. Personnel is the city's largest expenditure at 55%. Next slide. The general fund is the primary operating fund for the city. The primary revenue sources are property taxes, sales taxes, franchise fees, grants, fees, and other general revenues. Funds are discretionary and have very few restrictions. The general fund provides general operations of the city through administration, finance, city clerk, board of directors, court, probation, police, fire, agencies, animal shelter, federal JAG grant, Stop School Violence grant, and coronavirus supplemental funding. Next slide, please. The general fund year-end 2020 budget highlights are as follows. Expenditure growth expected to exceed revenue growth. Expenditures expected to exceed revenue by 2.1 million. The budget was approved with 1.5 million appropriated fund balance, 858,000 allocated from restricted reserve for loan proceeds for the new animal shelter. Expenditures are expected to be over budget by 483,000. An additional 657,000 will need to be allocated for the estimated actual expense in the by-state fund. 220,000, the 2020 actual contribution is 229,000. Additional expense covered by overage paid into by-state fund. The estimated fund balance at year end is 5.5 million. Next slide, please. The general fund major sources of revenue for fiscal year 2021 are general property taxes. They account for 12% of budgeted revenue with a 2.5% increase budgeted. Other sales taxes account for 56% of budgeted revenue. 1.7% increase is budgeted, and 1% of the city's 2.5% tax goes directly to the state as part of the border city exemption. Franchise receipts account for 13% of budgeted revenue. A 0.6% increase is budgeted. The general fund balance, the recommendation as approved in the fiscal policy is 60 days of expenditures in unrestricted fund balance. Anything less than 60 days causes a cash flow issue. The general fund balance is 5.5 million estimated at the end of 2020 and 3.9 million estimated at the end of 2021. This is 67 days of expenditures. The general fund highlights for fiscal year end 2021. No general fund department was required to cut expenditures. A 2.5% COLA proposed for all employees. Additional personnel will cost $50,000 for one new kennel tech and to transfer one part-time kennel tech to full-time for the animal shelter. $81,000 is budgeted for 2 new equipment operators for the streets department. The by-state contribution decreased by $609,000. This is due to the cumulative overage of 1.7 million and the transfer of inmates to Miller County. $137,000 was budgeted for the by-state reserve. Next slide, please. The general fund capital outlay for fiscal year end 2021. For the finance department, $12,500 for a new copier. The police department, $15,000 for 12 desktop computers, $100,000 for 5 camera systems and additional body cameras, $250,000 for 5 fully equipped Ford Explorers, including graphics. For the fire department, $35,000 for hydraulic rescue tools, $21,000 for HVAC units, $12,000 for a commercial washer, $45,000 for staff cars, $400,000 for a pumper truck, and $125,000 for a brush truck. For the animal shelter, $75,000 for a fully equipped ACO truck. And for the agencies, $750,000 for drainage improvements and $232,000 for economic development. The Public Works Fund budget highlights for fiscal year end 2021. Proposed ending fund balances of $150,000. Other street projects include drainage improvements, Joy Lane washout, Sanderson Lane road improvements, Tennessee road improvements, East 45th Street road improvements, and Jefferson Avenue road improvements. Are there any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Tyranda? I don't have any additional comments to make outside the ones I made during our workshop.
Trying to see.
This is Director Peavy, and again, I'm just glad that we have the money to give not only our fire and police departments the raise this year, or we could look at it as a bonus, but our city employees across the board, especially during this pandemic year, and to our employees who have faithfully been coming to work during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Peavy. Well said.
Is there any other questions or comments?
Mayor, I got some. I was trying to wait to see if anybody else got any. If not, I will. Okay, I'm gonna call this a political budget. And the reason why I'm gonna call this a political budget, because our budget normally is passed most of the time in December. This is the first time I can recall, if any, that a budget has been passed the first meeting in November, and even right before election. But that's beside the point, really. But my comment is, we normally have a workshop, which we did, and the workshop where we supposed to get input from the board members to express concern that we had with the city budget. And I know that, Mayor, I had emailed you, Tyler, and the city manager. You might even sent something to the Gazette about the August 8th flood, and which you somewhat stated that we was going to look at this during the budget process. And the $750,000 draining improvement from the workshop, like to me, it was only covering the north end of town. And I can kind of care less about. I know last time I spoke of this, I so-called hurt somebody's feeling or something. But that's beside the issue. No, I'm trying to get something done in Ward 2, because they, that flooding was all throughout the city, not just one part of the city. And also, I've been sending the city manager, not in the public works guy, email for flooding throughout this part of the city, and like 708 Kesso, and then the creek on and around Seaver Street and Stevenson Street, then Cherry Street north of Graham Street, and then Jones Creek. That's really what's beside from Pinehurst, where really from Washington Street and go all the way to 71, and none of these is really not being addressed. Then I brought up during the workshop somewhat about the work release prison, which I was saying prison lately. When you got 9 people that can't come to work because what somebody else say they can come to work or not, I see that's an issue. I would like to see that reduced to 2 full-person, and I also hire 2 more free world person. Then that'll make it at least full person you hiring in public work, because lately from what I'm seeing, like Ward 2 been seeing when people not coming to work, cutting grass, and I noticed that about the last 2 weeks or the last 2 months, like me, grass cutting just basically had stopped. Then I would do something like Operation Curb Appeal, meaning that I would buy a street sweeper, and I know that the workers wouldn't mind delaying their raise at least maybe to 6 months or something. If not, I understand that the workers, they deserve every penny that they're getting, and it ain't about me trying to say I don't think that the workers deserve no penny. I think all the workers deserve a penny. Then the other issue is based on agenda item 4, which you said had something to do with AP budget, and you also got that imposed in this budget. Then I think that this budget really needs to be tabled, which I'm gonna make a motion to table this budget to really until we look at the next agenda item and see where it's going. So I'm gonna move that this budget is tabled until the next board meeting, and then we can look at that. But I also like to see my points that I'm asking being addressed, because I don't see how it's really being addressed. And Mayor, you did clearly state that this was going to be addressed during the budget process. And then when Tyler spoke, he said now he can get online and correct me, he really doesn't have a clue as to really what causing the drainage issue, with that. But I guess he may say he need to hire an engineer or something. But I just don't see that the citizen who I'm on here to protect is benefiting at this budget. I know I can't get everything what I'm asking for, and which nobody will or can. But I think you need to at least address some of these issues on that. And like I said, I'm going to make my motion move to table this budget to the next board meeting.
Well, prior to your motion, I would like to make a couple of comments, and strictly speaking from myself and where we're at with the budget. First and foremost, this is a very proactive for the budget for the citizens, in my opinion. It puts money in the police department with new vehicles. It puts money in the fire department with upgrade of equipment. and it is putting money in public works. And as I said at the previous budget workshop and working with public works myself over the last 3 months, these are extensive studies that the city has got to do to figure out where this money needs to be spent. We know where our serious issues are with flooding and things that occurred, and it's money that's needed to be put in that. So overall, I'm very pleased that this money is getting put into the budget. I think that the citizens and everybody else will see when the time comes where this money is going to be spent. Now, your accusation about it being spent north of town is not true. I haven't seen anything to see where this money is being spent. I can tell you I will support where the money is being spent when we see the studies on where our most serious flooding areas are along Nicks Creek and other areas. So that is something that's got to be determined within this budget and with these studies. But I do feel like that this is it's getting raises to your employees. It's given a much needed equipment in these departments that we've needed in the past. The city has not spent $3 million in capital improvements in years. I don't know that they've ever done it. So yes, this is a citizen's budget, in my opinion. We still need to be patient, looking for these studies that Public Work is working on that has to do with flooding. And I don't know where that's going to be, but I do understand, and my support is going to be where these areas are needed the most. I don't care where they are in the city. I want to fix some of these issues that these people have expressed interest to us over the flooding. So I do think this is a city budget, and it's taking care of a lot of things. It's not going to happen overnight, and we need additional information as far as before we can release where this money is being spent. As far as
I'm sorry, go ahead.
As far as the correctional workers, that's the biggest bang of the buck the city can use when we can get correctional workers to help us with our areas. You are correct in probably saying that we do rely on them quite heavily. And we have been hurt by this in the pandemic, and we have certainly gotten behind by not being able to use them. And there are a number of reasons for that. And I would think, and with my conversations, we're not going to be able to get them probably the rest of this year, just based on what's been taking place with the pandemic. But that is the biggest bang of the buck for the city to utilize these services to keep this money out of the public works budget, which we know personnel is our most expensive expense. So I will continue to support using these workers when they're available, and going from there. But that's my comment on that. Director Teeters?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Brown. I had one question. I grew up on Nicks Creek in Forest Park. Of course, I'm not in that ward anymore, but doesn't Nicks Creek go through multiple wards of the city? Tyler, are you available? Someone from Public Works?
Yes, ma'am, you're correct. It goes all the way towards, it stretches all the way towards 6.
That's what I thought. It pretty much traverses a little bit of every ward throughout the city, correct?
Pretty much.
And
Yes, ma'am.
isn't it also one of our main sources of runoff, and lots of other smaller creeks run into Nicks Creek? Is that correct as well?
That's correct.
Okay, so wouldn't it make sense that addressing one of the largest ones in the city that is prone to flooding, wouldn't that address other issues as well throughout all the wards and not just north of town?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. And that's really all I had. Like I said, I thought Nicks Creek pretty much traversed the entire city.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mayor, this is Director Peavy. I want to say I appreciate your remarks and how that you just cut right to the chase, and just how what our priorities need to be with this budget, and that we need to get on it so that our Public Works department and other departments will know if that money is going to be there so that they can be planning accordingly. Thank you.
Any other comments? And the only other comment that I would make is, Director Harris, pertaining to the A&P. As we all know, the A&P is a separate entity by the city The A&P has already voted on that budget, regardless of what happens today. Certainly, if something happens today and the A&P is dissolved, then they don't have a budget to enforce, but that's a separate entity that budget's already been approved. And the way I look at it, you're just codifying what the A&P Commission has done. It should not have anything to do, in my opinion, with what happens today. Is there any other comments? Director Harris, would you like to make your motion to table the budget?
I thought I did.
All right. Director Harris has made a motion to table the budget till the next meeting. Is there a second? Is there a second to table the budget? Not hearing a second, we'll move on to the adoption of the resolution to pass the fiscal year 2021 budget. Do I hear a motion to adopt?
Mayor, this is George Madison. I'll read it very briefly.
Go right ahead.
Whereas the fiscal year of the city of Texarkana, Arkansas is January 1 to December 31, and whereas the law of the state of Arkansas requires adoption of an annual budget, and whereas the 2021 proposed budget has been reviewed by the Board of Directors in a workshop session which was open to the public, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the city of Texarkana, Arkansas that Section 1, the 2021 budget attached hereto and made a part hereof, along with amendments of the 2020 budget to reflect year-end adjustments for the 2020 audit, is hereby adopted. Said budget shall be kept on file in the office of the city clerk. Section 2, the respective amounts of money allocated to each of the funds in the 2021 budget, including the 2020 revised amounts, are hereby allowed and appropriated. Section 3, unless otherwise specifically required by separate ordinance or applicable law, the city manager is authorized to select and hire individuals to fill all budgeted positions now or hereafter coming vacant contained in the FY 2021 budget. Passed and approved this second day of November 2020.
The city attorney has read the resolution pertaining to the budget. Is there any other discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to adopt.
Director Peavy, motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Stephen Hollowbush, second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt the 21 budget. Is there any other discussion? If not, could you call the roll, please?
Harris,
No.
Hollabush,
Yes.
Minor,
yes,
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. And correct me if I'm wrong, George, that is at least 4 votes affirmative. The resolution for the budget passes.
That's correct.
Okay. Then the budget is, resolution passes. Moving on to item number 4 of the regular agenda, to adopt an ordinance repealing ordinance number H-123 as amended, modified, and codified, dissolving the Advertising and Promotion Commission of the city of Texarkana, Arkansas, and repealing the levy of corresponding gross receipts tax. This ordinance is sponsored by Director Stephen Hollowbush. Director Hollowbush?
Yes, Mayor, this ordinance would repeal the A&P Commission and the tax. I have looked at this, and from what I can see, the A&P Commission provides very little benefit as far as advertising and promotion goes. The A&P has entered into several multi-year commitments to different organizations that ties up these funds that can't be used by future commissions. So before we start out, half of the funds for the A&P are already committed to private businesses. We pay an additional, it started out as $140,000, I think 3 years ago, and now we pay annually $130,000 to an advertising and publicity firm out of Little Rock, Arkansas. From what I can gather, for our money, we get a website and a Facebook page. This isn't anything that's boosted on Facebook. This isn't anything that is promoted as far as I can see. I have heard that there is a television presence, but I haven't seen that. And so for $130,000, from what I can tell, we have a Facebook page and a website that you have to seek out if you want to find. Now, the purpose of these funds is to advertise and promote the city. In the application, it clearly states that organizations should not rely on these funds beyond 3 years. There are multiple organizations that have received funds well beyond the 3 years. So what this fund has become is a prop up for a few businesses and a prop up for a few nonprofits. Now, these nonprofits, these businesses, they do great things. I don't want to see anybody go out of business. I don't want to see any nonprofits shut down because they do provide a benefit to the city. But the Advertising and Promotion Commission is not formed to support nonprofits. It is formed to advertise and promote the city. And for $1.2 million, going back to, and again, this has changed over the years, so the numbers have changed. But in recent years, it's generated between $1.1 and $1.2 million a year. Going back to the 70s, I can't tell where there has been much benefit from this commission. Now, we charge an additional 2% to our restaurants, or to our patrons of restaurants, I should say, and an additional 3%. Now, some of this revenue is coming from out of town. People are driving down I-30, people are coming to visit the city, people are passing through the cities, and we are generating revenue from outside sources. But by and large, it's the citizens of Texarkana that are paying for this tax. Now, the restaurant owners obviously are not affected directly because they are not paying the tax. Citizens of our community are paying this tax. Now, 2% is not a lot. And if I could take that 2% and translate it to $1.1 million a year and show you where that has benefited Texarkana, where we have been advertised and promoted, then I would love to do that and continue this thing. But I feel like it's been mismanaged. There is no oversight. We have a commission of 4 people. And I hear that they just can't get people to join. Nobody wants to be on the A&P commission. But in talking to restaurant owners, they say that they have tried to get on the commission. And anybody I've talked to would not come out publicly in support of this ordinance for fear of backlash. There was a repeal effort in 2014. 1,500 people in the community signed a petition to repeal this ordinance. Now, it did not make it to a ballot on a special election because of a technicality. But in talking to one of the petitioners, he said of the 850 signatures that he got, only 6 people did not sign his petition, and they were recipients of some of the funding from A&P. Now, so we've got 4 people that are running this commission and controlling $1.1 million of taxpayers' money. And you said yourself, this is independent of the city and is completely separate from the city budget, and the city has no dealings with A&P. So we have a commission of 4 people that are not allowing other members to join their committee. From what I'm hearing, I don't have firsthand knowledge of this. But from what I'm hearing, people have made multiple attempts to join the A&P commission and have been rejected. So you've got 4 people controlling $1.1 million of taxpayer money, and it's going to the same entities year after year after year, and it's doing nothing to benefit the citizens. Now, the restaurants, although they're not paying this tax, are also feeling the effect from this, because I will tell you there are some restaurants that have locations on both sides of the state line, and they lose Arkansas catering business to their Texas stores. They don't lose business, but the Arkansas side loses tax revenue because if I've got a $500 catering order, I'm going to the Texas side to save that 2%, because at $500, 2% is a little bit more significant than a $20 lunch. And so we're losing business to the other side of the state line. We're not competitive with Texas, because if I want to come to town and open a restaurant, do I want to charge my customers 12.5% or 8.25%? Now, 10.5% doesn't exactly make us competitive, but it gets us a lot closer, especially for somebody who is a lifelong Arkansas resident. If they want to open a restaurant and they want to put it on the Arkansas side, but can't because of the tax burden, we want to level that playing field. And I believe that this, especially in the age of COVID, this is going to help our restaurants, it's going to help our hotels, and it's going to help our citizens. And that is all I have for now.
Okay.
Man,
Does, we can open it up at this time for board questions. This is an ordinance. Is there any comments to be made by any board member?
Mayor, I do.
Okay. Director
Yeah,
Harris.
Lane had. Somebody, I'm gonna say a restaurant owner came by and asked me about this ordinance today. And in my opinion was, I did say, I just noticed how easy, but that's how easy someone else is able to get certain things on the agenda, which I told her that, and how somebody else would get like me take an act of Congress to get something on the agenda, but that's whether here or there. But my question is, my comment is, I can see part of this, I might agree with this, and part of it, I disagree with this. For it's the restaurant issue, I can see maybe doing away with that portion. This is what I told. Before it's the hotel issue, I would think that probably need to be kept, because I don't care where you go, you paying anywhere from $3 to $6. Any city you going to, you paying anywhere $3 to $6 for extra tax or extra fee when you rent a hotel room. But the issue that Mr. Hollywood brought up about that $100,000, why did he just bring up something to repeal that or ask the A&P Commission to look at that and do away with that portion of that about that website and all that, do away with $100,000. But I do think that hopefully that this again is not decided to maybe read 2 or 3 times, because you did have companies or business coming in here based on the Senate, and now we just not passed something about 2 weeks ago or a week ago was based on the Senate, getting somebody to come to Texas County and do jobs or do something for his job. Now, how is that when you're gonna do away with a sentence, as to when you trying to get people to come in where they gonna say, and I'm gonna list out the convention center for one. I think that's what one of the Senate going to the convention center. Now, if I wasn't on the A&P too, I don't think passed that in the Senate, but it was done for a reason to help to get that convention center being built here in Texas County, Arkansas. Now, if that convention center would have got built without that in the Senate, I that's a question. I kind of doubt it, but but won't you just go back and revisit and then I would like the convention center people to really find out about this ordinance before we really make a final decision on it. And I don't know who else getting money for in Senate. I think 2 board members. No, it's on the A&P. And another thing I probably recommend that you increase the board member up to 3 person, and then have 2 restaurant, not 2 restaurant, but 2 hotel owners on there. And that would be my compromise for this. I haven't did it in no motion yet, but right now, that's what I can kind of see the standpoint as to what could kind of be done from this standpoint. You know, do away with the restaurant collecting, should I say the hamburger tax? That's what it's called. But keep the incentive, but keep on collecting the hotel receipts or the hotel tax on there, because even though I know that's mostly paid from someone else, I don't think too many people in Texas County is going getting a hotel or this and that. But also, like I said, I'm looking at the point that you gave out and sent it to somebody else to do something, and they did what you said they did what they said they would do based on the Senate. And I do understand the point that the board approving something that 20 and 30 years. Just say the bond issue. We did not approve the bond issue that they're gonna be around to, I think, 2045. So we are every board member, if I understand, gonna improve something longer than they require they time on the board, because I know I ain't gonna but I just know with that bond issue that was just passed 2 weeks ago, a week ago, it's gonna be around to 20. It's not gonna mature to 2045. So, and that's basically what I got to say here. And make it long story short, do away with the hamburger tax and keep the hotel tax on them, and then have the A&P commission revise them, the 3 board members, and get 2 rest and 2 hotels on them. Then look at that $130,000 that they just paid out for their website. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Director Harris.
Director Teeters,
Any other director?
I'd like to say a couple things.
Okay.
Yes, Director Teeters, I'd like to say a few things if I could, please. Number one, the sales agency and one other agency. I mean, we are an A&P commission. I hope everybody understands our commission's purpose is advertising and promotion. And we saw going with an ad agency is actually a cheaper and more efficient route to get the word out there, as opposed to letting all these smaller entities do some of their own advertising. I know people are aware, but a lot of organizations in town, whether they're nonprofits or not, we're talking restaurants, hotels. I'm sorry, just a moment. Can y'all hear me? I'm getting a message that I'm losing. Can y'all hear me? I apologize.
It's a little distorted, but keep going.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. All these businesses, hotels, restaurants, special events, the 4 States Fair, the car shows, these are all on these websites and Twitter accounts. And 2 agencies first came to us when we proposed this, and then one withdrew their bid. The sales agency was our only applicant. And I would love for us to have a workshop and have some people from the sales agency come down and address Mr. Hollybush's concerns, because they can show the growth and the hits that we're getting and the business this is generating in town. We're one of the few towns in Arkansas through this COVID that is actually not seeing a huge drop due to what the sales agency does on an extensive basis. So I would love for them to come down and conduct a workshop for us. Something else I'd like to say is, since this is just a couple quick checks, and, daylight savings time, we fall backward an hour. I would hate to see Texarkana fall backward 60 years. In the state of Arkansas, A&P commissions are it's almost a given. Let me just say a couple of names for you. Fayetteville, Clinton, Hardy, Hot Springs, Conway, Pine Bluff, Greenwood, Sherwood, Rogers, Little Rock, El Dorado, Searcy, Benton, North Little Rock, Bentonville, Bella Vista, Fort Smith, Springdale, Magnolia, West Memphis, Texarkana. They all have A&P commissions for the very reason that we have it. Okay. Now, this idea that it's not generating revenue for the city, I'm not sure where this is coming from. In fact, Mayor Brown, think about the Live United Bowl. How many people come from out of town and stay in our hotels and eating our restaurants just for that one event? And the AMP has always given money to that and other things that we know. Look at the Four States Fair. Not just our fair each year, but just the Four States Fairgrounds. They bring in, I would love for Mr. Talley to come and talk about how much revenue is generated through hotels and restaurants for people coming into these events that the AMP helps fund. As Mr. Hollybush said, restaurant owners are not out one penny on this tax. And because it's collected from the citizens and then turned over to the city. It has been this way for years, and that's the way it continues to be. We have very strict guidelines as to where the money can go, and I do not understand how he can say it's being mismanaged. Now, I cannot discuss people who have applied to be on the AMP commission, but I will say that several people who have applied either have conflicts of interest or have been very vocal against the commission. I've only been on there for a couple of years, and we've had very few applicants for the commission. We've reached out to multiple people and asked if they would be willing to serve or perhaps serve again. So I don't understand why we have all these applicants that Mr. Hollybush is saying that we're not accepting. And then one other question. And I think, well, I just want to make sure you're going to go on record as being against any added taxes that a restaurant or a bar or a hotel that might collect and then turn over. So you're going on record as being against any added tax, correct, to a hotel, bar, or restaurant? Mr. Hollybush?
That has nothing to do with this issue.
I thought that is your issue. You didn't want an added tax to our restaurants, hotels, or bars.
So
that generates extra revenue. I thought that is your issue. Is it not?
Are you wanting me to go on record to say I'm against adding any tax now or in the future to any restaurant or hotel?
No, I'm just saying, as it stands right now, are you against the tax that we have in place that we add to restaurants, bars, or hotels that generates extra revenue?
I'm against the tax that that doesn't benefit the citizens and the restaurants and hotels. Now, I have talked to multiple restaurants in Texarkana, Arkansas, that say they have seen no benefit from this and are adamantly against it, but will not publicly come against it for fear of backlash because of what has happened in the past when people have come against this tax. They have faced audits. They have lost business because of it. And so you do that to a handful of people, and that is not this board, that is not the city manager or this mayor that has done this. But in years past, there's been situations where restaurant owners have been vocal against this tax and have suffered for it. So basically what we have told our restaurant owners and our citizens is, you better keep your mouth shut because we're going to get this money no matter what. And that is not the city we want to be, and that is not the message we want to send.
Okay, so you're saying that happened in the past, but you're saying it's about to happen again. Is that what you're saying? You're saying no one in the present time is feeling that way, but now you're saying it's going to happen anyway.
No, I'm saying there is fear of retribution because of what happened in the past. I'm not saying that there's retribution now.
Okay.
I have encouraged these restaurant owners to come on this call and share their opinions, share their thoughts, and let the board know that this does not benefit them.
Mayor Brown is a recipient of the AMP tax. I mean, would you like to address?
Yes. Is there any other director before I do have some comments? Is there any other director that would like to speak pertaining to this?
Director Peavy and I would like to speak at some point, but I can certainly wait.
Okay. certainly one of the concerns that I have, and first and foremost, I won't be supporting this ordinance today for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons to not support this is because of the money that it does generate for the city, but it also has contractual obligations that were beyond our control that I have looked into personally over the years, just the 2 years that I've been mayor. And that is not a road that I'm willing to support and take the city down at this time as to whether those contracts would be enforceable or not. My personal opinion with the research that I've done, those contracts would be enforceable. So eliminating this at this time will only bring heartache to the city. One of the other main reasons is that this not only supports these businesses and these nonprofits, it also supports the Park and Recreation Department. We have 80 some odd $1,000 going into Park and Recreation Department that would have to be handled by some other entity, or we're going to basically shut Park and Recreation down by not being able to do that. We also pay for our ADC workers out of this promotion fund. So there are a number of issues that do benefit the city. They benefit these owners of this city, because the only thing I can explain to you, Director Hollybush, it is the promotion that we can talk all day long about the obligations and contracts and things that A&P has. I don't feel like that it's justifiably correct to say that this money has been misspent or there's no accountability for this money. This money is audited on an annual basis by our audit company. Those funds are accounted for. So to give a misnomer that there's something wrong with A&P, there may be some things wrong with the structure of A&P, but there's not anything wrong with the mishandling of these funds that are going forward that I can see, and I have spent a lot of time in those numbers. But the promotion of these businesses with what the A&P does and allot this money does put money in the pockets of these restaurants and hotels. That is money without these events to be able to lure here and get here. Those restaurants and stuff would not benefit from that. And so for us to be able to take up an ordinance of this significance and try to have this ordinance passed in one night with the ramifications that it would have on the city, I can't support it in its present form. Director Peavy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Several thoughts. Let me just start with for the advertisement and for the firm and the amount that they've been getting paid for the past couple of years. If you're not in Little Rock and you're not listening to a Little Rock channel, you have missed the Texarkana advertisement that they put on the Little Rock channels. And those go out pretty much statewide when you're watching a Little Rock channel and the surrounding suburbs and everything. And when I first saw it, and I said, oh, that's us. It's impressive. In fact, they won an award, a state award, and they're going, I think, for a national award, promoting our town. So if you haven't seen that, then you're not aware of that. And yes, it's a large expense, okay, but they are very professional. And from what I saw, I was very, very pleased with that advertisement promoting our city, because when you're coming between Little Rock and Dallas, Texarkana, well, what's in Texarkana? If they've seen that advertisement, oh, well, let's go check out this. I remember seeing that ad and so forth. And then that brings people in. In fact, they're redoing around the post office to direct that traffic on down to that new entertainment district and the revitalization of downtown. So if you're not aware of that, then you're just not aware of that. But it's out there. Also, I don't know if you've been down and early for the race, the half line marathon, Run the Line marathon. It starts early that morning. And I know, Mayor, that you've shot a gun off for it, you and the Texas mayor, but they don't drive in that morning. And the numbers are increasing. So they have to stay somewhere. And they have to eat somewhere. But if you're not a runner and you've never been down there to see all of those runners, that's big time. Also, when I did some research on the Texas side, I thought, well, I just don't remember hearing anything about Texas having an A&P. Well, because they don't. They have instead a hotel occupation maintenance. Let's see, a hotel operation fee, whatever. They put it at 13%, a room charge, 13% that Texas side slaps on each room. It's called HOT. We have a 3% charge. They have a 13%. 6% goes to the state of Texas, 7% goes to the city of Texarkana, Texas. And out of that 7%, they use the 2% of it to maintain their convention center. So I wish convention centers were self-supporting. As we have found out, they are not. They require money. And yes, we entered into this years ago that we had nothing to do about or with, but we have to deal with what we have been handed. And so with that in mind, at some point, I'm not against what Director Harris has said, dealing with COVID, particularly this year, maybe looking at some form of reduction until our businesses can get over the hump of the effects of this pandemic, but and maybe making a compromise, Director Hollybush, and and how it should be restructured maybe and so forth. I'm not against looking into something like that, but just to do away with it totally tonight without further having a workshops or more consideration or throwing around these ideas at the card, I would need to be more in support of that than just doing away with it. Thank you.
Is there any additional board member would wish to address the board?
Director Teeters, one more time. One thing I forgot to mention that I would like to, I don't know how many people are also aware. Thank you, Director Peavy, for that, and Director Harris also for your words. I do agree with some of the things you said as well. Do people understand how much money comes into Texarkana with baseball and softball tournaments every year? Heads and beds. And it's huge. And as Mayor Brown mentioned, some of our commitments, especially to some of these ball fields that host these phenomenal tournaments, we have multi-year commitments to them, whether it's concession stands or scoreboards or fencing or whatever the case may be. And to say that our businesses, to say that our hotels and our restaurants do not benefit from this tax, nothing could be further from the truth. These girls and these boys who come in and play these tournaments, some of them bring, because these people have come to AMP and given us the facts on this. Some of these people could bring in 15 or 20 friends and relatives. And these usually stay in the hotels for 3 to 4 to 5 nights for these tournaments. They're staying in hotels and they're eating in our restaurants. So I didn't understand how someone thinks that our restaurants and hotels not benefit from the Advertising Promotion Commission. And thank you also, Mayor Brown, for your words. We are truly audited every single year, and there is no mismanagement of funds whatsoever in the A&P Commission. You can rest assured. Thank you.
And Mayor, Director Peavy, again, one more thing. I couldn't think of the hotel occupancy tax. I'm sorry, I was drawing a blank there earlier. So let me clarify that on the Texas side. But also, I have heard comments sent to me is that they would like for the citizens to be able to have more input on how our A&P tax money is spent. And so right now, I don't know if, maybe thinking future for a survey to take, or here are some options. What do you think? Like a sportsplex, to keep further building on bringing in these softball tournaments. And if you're not a parent or a grandparent that doesn't have these kids that play in these ball games, it's huge. It's huge. And I just can't overstate the impact that has on our businesses and hotels. But I also am hearing that citizens would like more input on how our AMP money is spent, and maybe giving them a chance for their voice to be heard and giving them some options on what's being considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Peavy. Any other board member wish to address the board?
I would like to
I got-
respond to some, go ahead, Mr. Harris.
Go ahead, Director
I
Harris.
was just trying to find out, is there a room for Mr. Howbush to get on the A&P commission? If he would like to, I'm just trying to see if there's a spot vacant.
We would, no, not as a board member. We would have to meet
Okay.
and make a resolution to change the bylaws of the A&P Constitution.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, though.
Okay, thank you.
Director Minor, may I speak a little bit?
Yes.
I have been on the A&P Commission for one of their seasons of funding, and it is very difficult. When you have 30 to 35 entities seeking funds for their events, you are constantly working your mind, your heart, your brain, everything that you have to be as good as you can to these entities who seek funds. I think some of them bring more beds and heads and eating in restaurants than others. But some of those requests are to make our city more attractive for when people do come. And I was very surprised at some of the things where the funds are allocated. This is a very difficult job. And if somebody wants my place on the board, they can have it. Not that I want to give it up, but it's, we did have one gentleman at the water park who was going to come forward and hopefully be a member of the board, but he met an untimely death. This gentleman, I mean, it was totally unexpected. He's a very nice man, and I'm thinking that he would have been readily accepted onto this board. It is these hotel and restaurant people are very busy. They're running their businesses. And to tell you the truth, I don't know, this takes a lot of time to hear 36 entities wanting money. It takes a lot of, you want to be the best that you can be for the people. You don't want to penalize anyone who can possibly enhance our city. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Minor.
Okay, in response to some of the comments, I know, Ms. Teeters, you said that A&P commissions are all throughout Arkansas. That it's pretty standard for a city in Arkansas to have an A&P commission. We don't have that on the Texas side. We are a border city, and that's one of the reasons why we have the state income tax exemption. So would you suggest that we do everything that everybody else in Arkansas does and go ahead and start collecting a state income tax? The goal here is to be more competitive with who's right at our border. That is who our competition is. Yes, we work together on stuff. Yes, we're twin cities and we're together on a lot of things. But we have to have restaurants and hotels and industry and people that want to come to the Arkansas side.
Any other comments?
I will add the multi-year commitments that the A&P Commission has made are the responsibility of the A&P Commission. They are separate from the city, and the city does not bear liability for those commitments.
Any other comment? Just so that we're clear on the procedures today, the ordinance will be read on its first reading by the city attorney. At that time, to have the ordinance passed, it will take 3 readings. There would be a motion and a second to have the ordinance read on its second reading tonight. So at this time, I would instruct we would need a motion if we wanted this ordinance read its entirety or in its abbreviated form on its first reading.
Mayor, before you do that, I know there's several members of the public that are here that would like to speak to this issue. If we could allow them an opportunity to share their thoughts.
Under the Director Hollybush, under our current procedures, they would be addressed after we get a motion to have it read on its second reading, not after the first reading. So we'll have it read on its first reading. If we get a second to suspend the rules and have it read on its second reading, they would be allowed to address the board at that time prior to the board voting to have it read on its third and final reading.
Mayor,
Yes.
I think I already said, I don't see, I'm gonna go along and saying, I don't see in passing this tonight, I don't see this is gonna make, well, we'll go ahead and wait, see if this is gonna make the second reading, but I somewhat doubt it, but.
All right. Do you have any questions about that, Director Hollybush?
I don't, and I would like to emphasize that I would like to get to that second reading just so that we can hear from the public on this issue.
If it does not get to its second reading, we have a list of people that is registered to speak during citizens communication time, and we can address that at that time. They will be permitted to speak.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so we can entertain a motion to have the ordinance read in either its entirety or its abbreviated form, and we'd instruct the city attorney to read the ordinance on its first reading.
Motion for first reading in abbreviated form.
Is there a second?
Mayor, to move this along, I'm gonna go ahead and second.
All right. So,
Mayor,
George,
may I make a
yes.
May I make a clarification? It's on for the first reading. This is really an abbreviated form vote. Is that what I understand?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Excuse me.
So technically, George, do we need to vote on having it read in its abbreviated form on its first
Yes, sir.
reading? Or can you go ahead and read it?
Just the abbreviated form version. This is just procedural.
So we have a
nature.
motion. We have a motion and a second to have the item number 4, adopting an ordinance repealing ordinance number H-123 to amend, modify, or codify, dissolving the Advertising Promotion Commission of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, and repealing the levy of corresponding gross receipts. We have a motion and a second to have the ordinance read on its first reading in abbreviated form. Could you call the roll, please?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollybush,
Yes.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes.
An ordinance repealing the City of Texarkana, Arkansas ordinance number H-123 is amended, modified, or codified, thus dissolving the Advertising and Promotion Commission of the City of Texarkana, Arkansas, and repealing the levy of the corresponding gross receipts tax pursuant to the Arkansas Advertising and Promotion Commission Act and for other purposes.
Okay, we've heard the ordinance read on its first reading tonight. Do I hear a motion to suspend the rules and have the ordinance read on its second reading tonight?
Stephen Hollybush, motion for a second reading.
Is there a second? Is there a second? So the ordinance will not be read on its second reading tonight for lack of a second. It will be moved to our next meeting in November for possibly a second and third reading, which would be November, help me out here, Heather, what day is that on? 16th?
Correct.
It will move to the November 16th agenda. Okay. I don't know of any other new business to come before the board. We do have several people that have met the requirements with the city clerk to address the board during citizen communication time. I'll take those in order of which they were received. And the first one was with Director Harris to speak at citizens communication time for a proclamation from the governor. Director Harris.
Oh, okay. Well, Mayor, I could go ahead and go last if they need to go ahead and speak. I don't have a problem.
That's up to you.
Ladies.
My procedure's
delay.
always been to take them in the order we receive them, so that's up to you. Would you like to defer to last?
Yes, I'll defer.
All right.
Go ahead.
Next, do we have a Jennifer Strayhorn on?
Yes.
Okay. Jennifer, you wish to address the board?
No, no, sir. I just have I just wanted to join the meeting.
Okay.
And thank you for all your work, the Arkansas Board of Directors. I was wanting to be here for the budget.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Do we have a Keith? I believe it's Lang, L-A-I-N-G.
I'm checking. I do not believe he is on, but he did.
I can cover that, Heather, if you'd like for me to. He did send an email for public comment that we will enter into the record. And basically, he is asking us to repeal the A&P ordinance on dissolving the advertised postman kitchen and repealing the levy of the gross tax receipts on Arkansas side customers. That will be made part of the record. The next is Harvey Woods.
Yes, he is on.
Okay, Mr. Woods?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you have 5 minutes to address the board, and please understand that the board's not permitted to discuss any of your comments, but you have 5 minutes to address the board.
I can be very succinct, Mayor, and I thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to say I appreciate Steve Hollybush for bringing this issue forward. Anytime that we can look at the tax structure and examine it, I think it's a worthwhile enterprise, especially something that's kind of flown under the radar so long as the A&P. In my opinion, it does give an advantage to the Texas side restaurants in particular with our hamburger tax. Anyone that eats out is very sensitive to the fact that you pay more when you dine at Arkansas side restaurants versus the Texas side. That's just a clear issue. It hits you in the face every time you get a receipt, and it figures into where you choose to dine. I think that's just absolutely a certainty. I just think that if we could level the playing field between the Texas side and the Arkansas side by making an adjustment, at the very least, to the hamburger tax, I think that'd be wise. And that's all I really have to add.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Woods. Brandon Cogburn. Is Brandon on, Heather?
He was. Let me double check. He was on. Can we come back to him?
We can. Dennis Young.
He was also on.
I'm here.
Okay. Dennis, would you like to address the board?
Yes, please.
Okay, go right ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank all of you for your comments. I appreciate that. First of all, there is more than one legal use of the restaurant hotel tax, Mr. Hollybush. And if you will go to your budget on page 115, you have a list of the legal uses of the hotel restaurant gross receipt tax.
Mr. Young, please let me interrupt you. Please do not address a board member by name.
Got it. The first legal use there is for advertising, promoting the city for its environs. But then you have several other things after that regarding convention centers, entertainment facilities, tourist promotion facilities, payment of debt costs, pledging A&P resources, funding of the arts, engaging personnel and incurring such administrative expenses. So there are a number of other things that are legally there for you to be able to use these funds. And in a conversation this afternoon with someone who happens to be on the city board, I can't mention their name, but it was told to me that we did not have a legal obligation any further if this passed for the city to have to pay these funds given to the water park and to the convention center and other things. The convention center receives $150,000 per year. The water park gets $250,000. I've been dead set against that from the word go, as I think all of you quite well. But in 2012, the city manager entered into an agreement with Holiday Springs Water Park, pledging A&P Commission to refund those taxes generated by sales for a period of 20 years. And we have this obligation. The city has the obligation, whether it comes from A&P funds or out of our general funds, and we don't have the revenue to do that. In addition, as Mayor Brown alluded to, we also pay into baseball, finance, parks, ADC, and all of these are in your advertising promotion fund budget on pages 116 and 117. It looks to me like we've definitely got obligations of $672,000. And then you add to that, we gave, A&P Commission gave $105,000 for park equipment last year, gave $131,000 to the Four States Fair. That takes you up to $908,000. And then you add in the ad agency of $141,000, you're up to over $1 million of expenditures that pretty well have to be taken into effect and done. If you're not going to do it out of A&P funds, where are they going to come from? The city needs to be spending dollars like that on potholes and other things. We don't have enough money to do that right now. So we don't have the money. The A&P Commission is a perfect place for it. And I hope that this ordinance will be defeated. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you.
Thanks, Dennis. Les Munn. Yes, sorry.
I don't believe Les is on anymore.
Samantha Knight.
Director Teeters, I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes, Director Teeters, you have a comment?
I'm sorry. Yes, on Brandon Cogburn. He's on the A Commission. He reached out and said he had something to do with ballots. He had to leave at 5. That's why he's no longer on.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Next
you.
up is Samantha Knighton.
Yes, she's on.
Samantha?
Hello?
Yes.
Miss Knighton?
I'm here.
Not set it. Okay. I don't know how to set it on.
Same way you do over there.
Yes, ma'am.
If I set it in here, it's gonna set over there too.
Everything for your color. The other clip is already set over there.
Sorry about that. Samantha, are you on?
She is.
Okay. Samantha, you wish to address the board?
Yes, sir.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Please, definitely would like to. Listening to all of us, would definitely appreciate it. I'm gonna keep it real short, real sweet. I think it's at least enough for the board as well as the A&P Commission to at least look and see how we are managing the
She's breaking up pretty bad. I can't hear her.
Yeah, we're having difficulty hearing you, Ms. Knighton.
I do think some of those funds could be potentially being mismanaged or not be using for the better benefit of the city. I do believe that on the ARK. Oh. Okay.
Samantha, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're having
What
a very
about now?
difficult,
Can you hear
we're having a
me
very
now?
difficult time hearing you. I'm not for sure if we can give you, we can go on to the next person and see if you can correct your audio. If not, we'd be glad for you to submit your comments. I think we caught part of it that you do support the board repealing the ordinance, repealing the A&P tax, but I'm sorry we're having a hard time understanding what you're saying. You could submit an email and we could make sure that that gets part of our record. Is she still on, Heather?
I think she's on, but she's on mute. So,
All right. Next on the list is Brent Talley.
he is also here.
Brent?
It'll take just a moment. He is not here.
Not there. All right. Freddie Lawrence?
He is not.
Okay. And then the last one I have is Dwayne Hall.
Dwayne Hall is online.
Okay. Dwayne, would you like to address the board?
I'm pushing unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, go right ahead.
My name is Dwayne Hall. My address is 2303 College Street in Texarkana, Arkansas. I rise in support of this motion because I don't think that the A&P board has been a good steward of the tax monies that it's been given. I believe the bankruptcy of the convention center is a perfect example of a bad use of our money. I believe the water park is not necessarily a money-making operation. I have experience working in the hotel industry for a decade. My job was attracting people to Texarkana. There are proven methods and places to put your money in order to do that. Typically, in summary, you just want to advertise at least one tank away from your destination and try to make it an overnight destination. That's what gets heads on beds. Some of these events work. I remember working with all types of sports teams that came in. Those help. But you know, the convention center is really too small to hold a real act over there. So we don't get even the major or medium acts. We can't get them in here because we don't have enough seats to pay for them. And it's really just a glorified hotel that's being paid for in part by public money. And it's not fair to the other hotel owners because they're not getting that type of money. As far as the continuing obligations, if this entity entered into this properly, what they would do is go borrow the money, or at least make arrangements to borrow the money. And that would be in concert with some due diligence on their accountability and on their tax base, and to make sure it keeps going on, or the entity's not going to loan the money to them. Then they could supply that borrowed money out. Then they're paying back the debt, which is former state representative Dennis Young said is a proper and permissible use of the A&P funds. The way they're doing it now, they could literally allocate more funds than came in every year. And they could just kind of sit out for 2 or 3 years and not make any allocations and let the tax base catch up with what they have already allocated. Is there any kind of rules that stop them from doing that? I don't know. I do respect Brendan Cogburn, and if he's on the board, I know that some things are being done right now. That's different than the past. In the past, I found them in violation of the Open Records Act, the Open Meetings Act. They didn't publicize their meetings properly. And, you know, as far as the Four States Fair goes, I think it's been in operation long enough. It ought to pay its own way. If it can't pay its own way, maybe they should consider doing something else with it. You know, it's a private business that doesn't open up their books to any kind of public scrutiny. So who knows where that profit really goes? I'm sure they're not doing it for fun. So they're making a profit off tax money and complaining that they don't have enough money to put on a fair the next year unless we pay them again. Not to mention the fair, if you ask most business people, and I have in Texarkana, the fair typically takes money out of their businesses instead of the other way around. I would be suspicious that all the sales tax that's supposed to be paid out the fair has been collected. I don't think that's a good system, and I don't think that's being done necessarily. It's very hard to find out about those things because, as I said, the Four States Fair is a private company that is chartered in Texas, and they won't allow any kind of transparency. And if they're going to be funded like a public company, they ought to do that. I'd also like to inquire as to any board members or the mayor having any types of conflicts with this resolution because they either get or want to get money from the A&P. I think that if they have a conflict, that would be a potential conflict of interest. I don't like Ward 2 director being ignored about the budget. His concerns are ignored. And I think to sum up, part of what he said is, why don't you show us in writing where the budget money goes to Ward 2? Because I see some addresses listed on there about drainage and other types of projects, and I don't notice that they're in Ward 2. And I know that the police drive their vehicles over there, and I know that, you know, other general items are used over there, like the street departments and public works. But specifically, where's the projects that are working on 9th Street to make it more attractive when people drive into Texarkana? Or, you know, 71 highway coming up south. Where's the projects for that? In addition, I don't think the rules are being ran right on the meetings. I don't know about the Zoom system, but I have my hand raised when y'all voted to not read this ordinance the second time, or to read it in its abbreviated form the first time. And unless I'm wrong about the rules, the public gets a chance to speak every time y'all make a decision by vote, before you make the decision by vote. And I'd like for that to be checked out by the city attorney. And if I'm correct, I'd like for that to be corrected, where the public is allowed to speak before the board votes. I don't think it's proper for any board member to be attacked because they have proposed a resolution. I'd like to see a more civil tone taken at the meetings. And I don't think it's proper to attack another board member and ask them to take their position on all taxes in general just because they proposed a specific resolution or an ordinance. I'm sorry, an ordinance.
Excuse me,
Clearly written.
Mr. Hall, your time is up.
Well, my time's not up because I raised my hand before y'all voted and I didn't get to talk. Now,
Mr. Hall, your five
Yeah.
minutes are up. We have rules.
Cut me
that are
off,
passed
Alan.
by
That's
the board.
fine. Just cut me off, man. But I ain't giving up my time. I want to know about my.
Okay, Mayor,
Director.
I have 3 more people who would like to speak.
Okay. I don't have those, so you'll have to let us know who they are.
I have Jonathan Harris.
Okay. Mr. Harris,
Yes, sir, I'm here.
go right ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you all for hearing me out. I'm glad I got to listen. This is very interesting. This is the first one I've ever gotten to listen to. So really trying to take my civic duty seriously and speak out on issues I care about. So I thank you all. I would echo, I believe the previous speaker, I would like to echo some of what he had to say in terms of the civility of how the issue was handled. I believe some of it was probably a little bit improper, but I thank you all for giving your opinions, and I think they were all well-founded from what I could tell. I think one of the biggest issues that I believe is being ignored largely by the board, to echo, is the incentive for restaurants to keep this tax. If multiple restaurants are saying that their Arkansas businesses are losing money to their Texas businesses, I think that should be taken into account in the discussion of this tax. And I think to ignore that is a mistake. Whether it's a complete repeal or a reform of the issue, that is to be further debated, because there are many places where these funds need to go. And I very much understand that. And we need, and reallocating that to other taxes and other things, paying for that, that can be difficult and hard. And I totally understand that. I really enjoyed what both sides had to say. Coming down to it is, I too feel that generally the Arkansas side can get snubbed when it comes to growth, and that this tax being there has not really helped us. I've lived on the Arkansas side my whole life, all my 23 years, and generally you see new restaurants, new businesses, and new things go up on the Texas or on the Arkansas side in terms of the market itself producing it. Why? Because of the competitive edge that the Texas side holds with its lower taxes and easier way of dealing, and things like that. And do I know the complete answer? No, I'm not a tax expert, but that's just something I've noticed as I've lived here. I think this is not an issue to be ignored or just thrown down. And whether it's a compromise or either side wins, I think it should be discussed more. And I think that's really all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Heather, next.
I have one person on the phone. And I do not know this person's name.
Okay. Hello, do you wish to address the board? Can you identify by name, please?
Donnie?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm Donnie Walden. I think you might have had another person on there. But anyway, I was supposed to be able to speak today before the board on this issue. Is that correct?
Yes, you have 5 minutes. You're talking with the board now.
Thank you so much. I'm Donnie Walden. I want to thank the mayor and the board for allowing me to speak for just a while. I've been listening to all the comments of all the council members throughout this whole meeting, including the mayor and Mr. Well, I can't call a name, but anyway, the whole council. And I've heard everything from the council about the good things that they do and what the good things they stand for and the way they handle the money. And I'm not even challenging them as far as being anything incorrect on the money being accountable and all of that. But I've not heard one thing about what the taxpayer thinks about this situation. And according to an article that was in the Texarkana Gazette on October the 31st, one of the council members was quoted as saying, the customers, not the businesses, pay them. That's talking about the tax, the hamburger tax, and I assume the motel tax also. And went on to say in this article, this tax that we collect is not 1 penny out of their pockets, the businesses. I don't understand what they're against. I've lived here for 55 years in this city. I've never been told by one person that I'd eat on the Arkansas side, but once I found out they collect the extra 2%. Well, I am one of the very ones that walked the street in 2014 to gather over 1,450 signatures and was turned in to get this put on the ballot to do away with the A&P Commission. I personally got approximately 850 of those 1,400 signatures. I walked streets from Sugar Hill to College Hill, from State Line to Mosley Road. That's all of the districts, all of the wards. I was turned down by 6 people that would not sign that petition to get it on the ballot. The excuse that they gave was don't think it's appropriate for me to sign that petition because the organizations that I'm on now, they get money from the A&P. But the taxpayer is never considered in this thing. It was found that we had the legal amount of signatures, but that the title to the petition was not titled right, so they turned it down. The other thing that I see wrong about the A&P Commission, there's no accountability whatsoever to anyone. The state law allows municipalities to create A&P commissions, which they're not. They're independent from all city government, local government bodies. That's what it says in the Texarkana paper. So anyway, that puts the A&P Commission collecting taxes that the taxpayers don't really want, but they've got it set up to where they can collect the taxes, spend the money the way they want to. The taxpayer themselves have no say, but it puts the businesses at a disadvantage when you're talking about a eating place. I'm talking about from Subway sandwiches to other tamales to the steakhouses. It was mentioned on there a while ago, and one of the councilmen or the mayor, all of them, that all of this money comes in because of the A&P Commission spends so much on the rodeos and all of this, and they do. But if you will go to the businesses on the Texas side, the eating places on the Texas side, you will see multa out-of-state cars when they come in, and you will see a multa Arkansas cars that come from Texarkana, Arkansas, going to eat over on the Texas side. A lot of them, some of them, I have friends that they will not eat on the Texas side. On the Arkansas side because of the hamburger tax. They were upset. They signed the petition. They said they'll never do it. But anyway, the convention center was awarded for the best Arkansas cars that come.
Excuse me, sir.
Okay.
Your
Mr.
time
Walden,
is.
your time has expired.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And then we also have Jennifer Strayhorn would like to speak again.
Okay. Jennifer, go right ahead. Hello, Jennifer.
It might take a second. Jennifer?
Yes,
Jennifer, you can address the board. You have 5 minutes.
I did not have anything else to say. Sorry.
Your hand
Okay.
is raised to speak. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. All right, Director Harris, I believe we can conclude with you. You've requested to speak to the board about a proclamation from the governor.
Yes, and I didn't say yes, I didn't mind taking a back step and let the public speak. And this is a proclamation from the governor of Arkansas. It says, State of Arkansas Executive Department proclamation to all whom these present come greeting. Whereas the state of Arkansas and our citizens recognize and greatly appreciate the contribution of local business and industry to the overall strength, character, and well-being of our state and resident of Arkansas, as well as visitors to our city and town, benefit daily from variety of service, product, agriculture, forestry, aerospace, manufacturing, mining, technology, and other accommodation provided by business in the industrial sector located throughout the natural state. And whereas our local business and industry, from the largest to the smaller, provide employment, wages, benefit, and economic stability to thousands of employees and their family. And whereas Arkansas citizens continue to gain a profound and positive return from the business and industrial sector, countless acts of charity and support for community projects and nonprofit programs that reach out to every part of our population. And whereas Business and Industrial Appreciation Month in the state of Arkansas provide an opportunity for city, town citizens to recognize and celebrate the contribution of local business and industrial sector make in our daily life. Where now, therefore, I, H. Hutchinson, Governor of the state of Arkansas, by virtue and authority vested in me in the laws of the state of Arkansas, do hereby proclaim November 2020 as Business and Industrial Appreciation Month in Arkansas. Across the state, and I ask all citizens to join with me in the cities and the town to celebrate the richness, diversity, and success of our business and industrial community. In testimony where I have here unto set my hand and cause the great seal of the state of Arkansas to be fixed to this second day of September in the year of Lord 2020, signed by Governor H. Hutchinson.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Director Harris.
And
Yes.
Mayor, if I might, before we adjourn, I would like to, after listening to these comments, I would like to ask if it would be possible to have a further workshop on this, Director Holly Bush, to get more input and to look at the options of what we can do with that, the 2%. We can lower that to 1%, to 0%. I would like to hear more input and have a workshop if you would be open to that, Director Holly Bush and other board members.
I would absolutely be open to discussion to get this thing resolved and either eliminated or ran better.
That's going to lie with you, Director Holly Bush, to call that workshop with the city clerk and the city manager at some point in time.
I will, and let me add this before we adjourn. Would it be possible to go back to in-person meetings in the near future? I know Miller County has been doing their meetings in person for a while, and the Texas side has been doing their meetings in person for a while. I think it does a severe disservice to the citizens to have to try to figure out how to log into a Zoom call and register, because it does take a little bit of effort to be able to get involved in what we've got going on as a city. And I think we're just really limiting the input that we have from our citizens by continuing to have these Zoom calls.
So noted. We will discuss that.
I think that comment was also made the last time we had a meeting.
Well, the problem that we have right now that we're facing is, one, we do get guidance from the municipal league, but we have had a serious outbreak of these cases within our confines of the city hall, which are a lot different than other entities. So there are certain precautions that we have to take in consideration when it happens at the place we would actually be meeting at. Even though we can take precautions within what our restrictions would be in meeting, we still have positive cases, and we've had for the last few weeks in City Hall within itself. So those are things that the city manager, I know personally, takes in consideration before making the decision as to whether we would meet in person again. But I will have a discussion with him and see where we're at that point in time, and see what our possibilities of meeting there on the 16th of November will be.
Or also, Mayor, if we could meet in a larger area, maybe. I don't know if it has to be City Hall. Maybe that's something to consider also.
Okay.
Right. And I would just like to say, I too miss the face-to-face meetings, but the safety of our board and our citizens and our board's family members is paramount at this time. Case is rising instead of declining. I don't think it would be a healthy issue to go face-to-face. I mean, the school districts in our area, the colleges, the public schools, they're all having to deal with massive increases in positive cases right now.
Any other comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Barbara Minor, motion to adjourn.
Stephen Hollybush, second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any other discussion? Could you call the roll, please?
Harris,
Yes.
Hollibush,
Yes.
Minor,
Yes.
Peavy,
Yes.
Teeters,
Yes.